Primary sources, a la Shmoop. Well, you can't create historical drama or historical fiction without historical research. And you can't do historical research without digging up some primary sources. These guys. Captain Phillips, Saving Private Ryan, 12 Years a Slave, Zero Dark 30. Yeah, people actually had to do research when they were writing those awesome scripts. Well, primary sources are original materials that were created during the time being studied or by someone with first-hand knowledge of the event. So let's break it down. Original means the source was created by someone actually living in the period we're studying. So if we're studying World War II, an original material could be the diary of a soldier. He wrote it himself and he was actually in the war. It originated in that time period. Materials means that primary sources take different forms. It could be a letter, a painting, even a toy. Then there's the created during the time being studied part. Well, a newspaper article about World War II that was written yesterday would not be a primary source because it was written 70 plus years after the event. There's a little hindsight there. But just to make it confusing, primary sources can be written after the event as long as it was created by somebody with first-hand knowledge, which means primary sources could include memoirs, letters, or interviews that were made after the event if the person making them was actually there at the time, like our WW2 vet. Okay, what isn't a primary source? Well, anything written about the past that wasn't written at that time or wasn't written by someone with first-hand knowledge of the event. So secondary sources are usually texts that use a bunch of primary sources to make an argument or to interpret the past. So let's say you're writing a paper and need to use primary and secondary sources. You collect interviews from WW2 vets, documents from government officials describing their decisions and action, film footage from the front, and a book published by a history professor in 2014 about World War II. Well, the interviews, documents, and film footage would all be primary sources. The book published in 2014 would be a secondary source. Okay, we're going to hit you with some types of primary sources. Texts, not the OMG LOL kind. Anything that's written down, like diaries, personal letters, or published works like books or newspapers. Images, anything visual, paintings, doodles, photographs, posters, tapestries, whatever. Recordings. Although recordings only go back 150 years or so, we've got recordings of music, oral histories, interviews, TV shows, radio programs, and films that literally speak to us about the past. Object. This pretty much covers everything else. Clothes, toys, coins, tools, pottery, and anything else you can think of that was made in the past. Alright, well, so according to this definition, couldn't anything that ever existed be a primary source? Well, sorta. But keep in mind, the further back in history you go, the less likely you are to find primary sources that have survived. Texts deteriorate and writing didn't always exist. We're more likely to have old images or objects, but they also deteriorate. So while we might have a ton of stuff from the recent past, our primary sources get more and more rare as we move further back in history, and our ability to construct a picture of the past gets a little fuzzy. Okay, but where in the world are all these things kept? Is there some sort of secret warehouse in Area 51 where we find them? Does the NSA have a massive database of every sound ever made in the past 150 years? But no. Objects can be found in archives, museums, or personal collections. But fortunately, you don't have to travel the world visiting all these places or breaking into private residences. There's a very convenient way of finding primary sources. The internet. Well, there are millions and millions of primary sources that have been digitized and put on the internet. Primary sources are the key to uncovering an accurate picture of the past. Without them, you could make up any story you wanted about history. Who knows, maybe Lincoln would have looked better as a blonde.
4 blondes ago. What did the buffalo say to his son as he left for school?
Bye, son. Okay, bad joke, but if you survived it, how about clicking the subscribe button below? And if you're looking for more jokes from yours truly, why not check out our website at www.shmoop.com. And if you want to get updates on what's new, well, check us out on Facebook and Twitter too. Please check our Facebook and Twitter pages, please.